Guys, today I'm going to show you 3 different melodies to help you with your composition project. I'm going to show you 2 melodies that are pretty good and then one that's not so good. All 3 of these melodies follow the guidelines for the project, so all of them move mostly stepwise. If there are skips, they happen between do, mi, and so. And all of them have 8 bars, so they're 2 4-measure phrases for each of these melodies. Let's take a look at the first melody up here. So a couple of good things that I see about this melody already. The first is that we have some of the same rhythmic ideas. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures that are starting with this dotted quarter note and eighth note idea. So there's a similar rhythmic theme. Another thing that's really good about this particular melody is that both phrases start exactly the same. So you can see these 2 measures are the same as these 2 measures. And we call those parallel phrases, phrases that start in the same manner. The other thing that's really good about this melody is if we look at the ends of the phrases, the end of the first phrase has a half note, so that's a really long rhythm compared to what we've used previously, and it gives a place for the phrase to rest, so it really sounds like it's the end of a phrase, and then the next phrase is a new idea. So let's listen to this phrase. And you can hear, again, some of the same starts for the phrases and this really good resting point at the end of the first phrase. So when we listen to this phrase, this melody, we can tell that it's really tuneful. So by using some of the devices that I mentioned, it helps the melody have patterns and make sense. So let's take a look at another example. This one is in 3/4. And if we look at the beginning of these 2 phrases, they're not the same. So these are called contrasting phrases. But I'm still using some different ideas to help give the melody some structure. So for example, again, there's some similar rhythmic ideas. I'm starting these with, these eighth note ideas. I have the quarter note in the second beat. I'm using do at the beginning of my third measure as kind of a goal. So if we look at the melodic shape of the first 2 bars, it's all kind of heading towards that do. And having that do be on the downbeat of the third measure puts it in a really strong place. So that's a good design for this first phrase. If we look again at the end, I've put another half note. You could do that. You could also change it if you wanted to. Maybe you want to do a couple of quarter notes. You could put that there as well, as long as it sounds like the phrase is coming to a conclusion. For this first time, I'm going to put the half note so we can hear what that sounds like. In the second phrase, if you take a look at this measure and this measure, you can see we have the same melodic idea in the same rhythm, but at different pitches. So we have a sequence here. So let's listen just to the sequence. So you can hear how those 2 ideas are related, and it gives, again, it gives the phrase some really good structure. Let's listen to this whole melody. 1, 2, 3. Again, this has some really good elements to give the melody some structure. Now let's take a look at this last melody. This melody follows all the same rules. So it has this mostly stepwise motion. If there are skips, it's only between do, mi, and so. But because of some of the rhythmic and melodic choices that were made, this melody just doesn't sound tuneful. So let me play it first so that you can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see if by listening to this melody, it just doesn't sound as clear or as cohesive. Part of what's making that a little confusing are some of the rhythms that I chose. So these syncopations that are happening, some of them in some strange places. Also, where I chose to put really important notes. So, like, let's take a look. Where does high do happen? Right here for the first time. And that should be right around the end of my first phrase. So putting that do, that high do there as a goal, in the back half of my fourth bar is not really a good place for that. Same thing if we look at the second phrase. Look, I put this high do at the beginning of my second measure in the second line. So it puts it in a weird place metrically that's not very strong. Some things that are okay about this melody if I wanted to start correcting it. The first measure is not too bad if we listen to it all by itself. But it's what happens after that that starts to be a little bit confusing. So I might take some of these ideas and develop them. You know, I might make a sequence, or I might just use some of the same rhythmic ideas. Even if this measure had matched this measure rhythm-wise, it might have improved it a little bit. In the second line, these last three measures are actually pretty good. We can see that it starts on high do, it's gradually going down, and it's ending on that low do. Let's listen just to these three measures again. And we have this little sequential idea. So we have these four descending eighth notes that are happening on a lower pitch each time. So those are some things that would be good about this melody that I could use to try to change it or edit it to help this middle section, which is a little strange. So take a look again when you're working on this on these melodies. Make sure you're using some of the ideas that we discussed in the first two melodies that make them sound really tuneful, and avoid some of the pit traps or the pitfalls and the traps of the last melody.